Is economics a positive science or a normative science? Is economics a moral philosophy or a predictive science? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Germinal Van, and this is what we are going to talk today: the nature and methodology of economics. I've been personally fascinated about the nature and methodology of economics. It's a fascinating subject to discuss. In fact, economists discuss it all the time. What is economics? So you have Milton Friedman, one of the greatest economists of all time, who wrote a 40-page paper in 1953 entitled Methodology of Positive Economics. And you have James Buchanan, my favorite economist, who is the author of The Calculus of Consent, who wrote a book entitled Economics Between Predictive Science and Moral Philosophy. So these economists are discussing the nature of economics. And you even have a debate between Robert Murphy from the Austrian School of Economics and David Friedman from the Chicago School, debating about the nature of economics and what methodology is the accurate method to use to perform economic analysis. So it's a debate that has been going on for decades. I will even say for centuries. So is economics a positive science or normative science? The answer I can give you is that it's in between. Economics is not a normative science, but it is not absolutely a positive science either. Personally, I believe that economics is a positive science than a normative science. And I'm going to develop my argument in a bit. But let us distinguish first what is positive and normative economics. Let's start with normative economics. So normative economics focuses on the ideological, opinion-oriented, and perspective and value judgment of what things should be. So normative economics focus on the desire of a society. It doesn't focus on what things are. It doesn't focus on the facts. It focuses on an idea, on a desirable outcome. So normative economics is subjective and value-based, originating from personal perspective, feelings or opinions involved in the decision-making process. Normative economic statements are rigid and prescriptive in nature. You know, you will often hear statements of what things should be, like everybody should have healthcare. That's a normative approach to economics. It completely excludes the actual mechanism of healthcare and how to get it. It's just saying everybody should have healthcare because it sounds good, because it's morally justifiable. So normative economics is in nature political and to some extent authoritarian, because it focuses on what should be. It's about order and imposing your opinion on others. It's this is my way or the highway. That's how I view normative economics. And the thing with normative economics is that we make statements without necessarily testing them. And that's when now we are going to come to positive economics. So positive economics is basically a stream of economics that focuses on the description, quantification, and explanation of economic development, expectations, and associated phenomena. Of course, it relies on objective data analysis, relevant facts, and associated figures. It attempts to establish any cause and effect relationship or behavioral associations which can help ascertain and test the development of economic theories. So Positive economics is about what things are. It's about the facts. Positive economics is objective and fact-based. That's the thing. Positive economics doesn't care about how you feel about something, even if what you feel about is morally fair and just. Positive economics tells you what things are. And what things are is that, let's say for instance, that if you consumption will increase by 95 cents if you increase income by $1. That's a positive statement. It is a positive statement because we're able to use quantitative method to determine that. A normative statement would be consumption increase because income increase because the more money people have, therefore they're going to consume more. Yes, it sounds logical, it's normal, but to what extent? And that's when positive economics shows its relevance. Because if you know that you increase income by $1, consumption will increase by 95 cents. So we know that we can measure and have an approx and a more accurate understanding of the relationship of these two variables. So positive economics is focusing on proving or disproving theories. And I said it in my previous video that when you have a theory, specifically, especially in economics, you have to test your theory. As I said, it's not like philosophy when you can create a theory and it doesn't need to be tested because it's purely based on reason and it's your theory. It's about the quest of wisdom. Economics is not about the quest of wisdom. Economics is about understanding the decision-making process and behavior of individuals. And as I said, and I keep repeating, economics deals with quantities. And anything that deals with quantities is necessarily mathematical. So because it is mathematical, therefore we can measure and predict. So of course both are necessary when it comes to positive and normative economics. So you need positive economics in order to do normative economics. Normative economics is about policy prescriptions. But in order to provide policies, you need to measure, you need to first of all analyze the current situation in order to determine how that current situation could even be improved or optimized. That's why they're both important. I personally believe, and I say this at first, that economics is a positive science because it deals with facts. It deals with facts. One other fact is that if you raise the minimum wage, it will trigger unemployment. That's a positive statement. There are countless studies that have measured this statement to prove or disprove its validity. So I think economics should be approached from a positive empirical mindset. Of course, it is a social science. Of course, human behavior cannot be predicted 100%, but we can still scientifically predict that. So we can scientifically predict some instance of human behavior. And one way economists and sociologists have been able to use quantitative method to determine human behavior is through the understanding of public relations and commercials, marketing. The more people are accustomed to a brand, the likelihood that they purchase the product of that brand are beyond 95%. You use probability theory to determine that. I work in market research personally, so I know these things. We use statistical methods every time to assess consumer behavior. Of course, consumer behavior can change. We're not saying that whatever we assess is automatically correct. That's why when we use econometric method, we always add the error term, because we assume that in our model there's some errors that could occur, but we try to minimize them. But human behavior can be predicted to some extent. I'm not saying that you can completely predict human behavior. It's not possible to completely predict it, but you can predict it to some extent. It depends on which part you're analyzing. So to do economic analysis from a normative aspect, it's simply using ideology to analyze economic phenomena. I exactly said this sentence in my previous video, and I repeat it here again. When you use ideology to do economic analysis, you are not proving anything. The only thing you're doing is to advance your own political ideology into the economic realm. Your political ideology does not demonstrate scientifically any economic phenomenon that is going on. Your political ideology does not test the economic dynamic of the business cycle. When you want to demonstrate that your theory is valid, as I said again, you have to test it. You need to rely on empirical tools of analysis to test your theory. And theories in economics are testable. Economics is not philosophy. Economics is not theology. Economics is not based on faith. It is based on facts. Simple as that. One fact that it's no one argues about is that, once again, if you raise the minimum wage, you're going to create unemployment. The supply of labor will be reduced. There'll be a high demand, but there'll be a low supply. It's the same with a product. When you raise the price of a product, less people are buying it. When you lower the price, more people are buying it. It's simple as that. So these are the approach to economics. We have to test our theories. I know I'm speaking from a neoclassical perspective, but that is why the neoclassicals have been very successful in mainstream economics, and that's why they were able to also defend the free market. I'm a champion of the free market, and neoclassical have always used empirical tools of analysis to demonstrate that the free market is a very efficient economic system for human progress. Because by using a normative approach, you're not demonstrating anything. You're just showing your understanding of what's going on, but you're not proving that what's going on is actually true. It's actually real. It's actually valid. You need to test it. So is economics a moral philosophy or a predictive science? Economics is in between. Economics started at first as a philosophy with Adam Smith. Adam Smith was a philosopher, and he wrote the theory of moral sentiments before publishing The Wealth of Nations. And in the theory of moral sentiment, Adam Smith talks about generosity, how people help one another, and stuff like that. It was talking about compassion and all these human virtues. And in The Wealth of Nations, Adam Smith talks completely the opposite of what he talk about in the theory of moral sentiment. He's talking about how people follow the self-interest to create growth, how they have to pursue the self-interest. But the connection between the two books is the moral compass. Is that at the end of the day, in a capitalist system, people, let me put it that way, people get in the market, they engage in the market for their personal interest, but they do so without attempting to cause harm to the other. So there's a lot of morals that are involved in people's intent when they engage in the market process. That's why economics at first started as a philosophy. But through times, we started to understand that from a scientific point of view, what were the reasons that triggers people's decision to operate the way they do in the market. And that's when we start developing economic models and analyzing scientifically what could be the results of their decision. That's when we understand scarcity, the production process, the distribution process, how prices are determined, and what they reflect. So, economics today is a positive science. It is not a natural science because it involves human behavior. And that is the reason why in econometrics we do not use experimental data, but we use observational, historical data. So the flaw in using historical data is that it is always biased to some extent because it's based on previous values. Whereas if it was in the physical and natural sciences, when you use experimental data, you will separate the data between the people who are controlled by whatever product that is being tested and those who have not tried the product yet, and you test and you make your deductions from the test. But in the social science, you cannot do that because it's human behavior, and human behavior tend to change. So the historical data we use is to understand the pattern or the trend, and our understanding of that trend will enabling us to determine either the disruption or the continuation of that trend. That's why it is still tremendously important to test the theory in economics. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was my allocation of the day. Let me know what you think in the comment. Personally, I think economics is a positive science, but it is between a positive and a normative science at the end of the day, because they both need each other, but the methodology of economics is purely positive in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm glad that you guys are listening to this, and I am looking forward for the next topic, which will be I don't know. Why don't you guys give me suggestions of about a topic related to economics and political science? I'd be glad to talk about it. Let me know in the comments. Until then, see you guys soon.